shame creates a problem of isolation, and isolation is the perfect environment for shame to grow. And the antidote to shame and isolation is coming into community and being known and loved and accepted in that community. And so at First Light, we try and create an environment that is safe enough for men to share things that they've never shared with anyone else before.
Welcome to Unashamed, the FirstLight podcast. Unashamed invites you into honest conversations on sexual compulsion, betrayal, and redemption in Christ. This is your host, Reverend Jonathan Shilts. We are continuing to get to know the ministries under the FirstLight umbrella. Last episode, we got the big picture from FirstLight's executive director, Reverend Sean Maney. Today, we are going to hear from FirstLight's men's director, Reverend David Noble. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Jonathan. It's good to be here.
FirstLight, broadly speaking, is a discipleship ministry centered on healing the causes and aftermath of sexual brokenness. What are some of the common issues that bring men to FirstLight?
Some of the common issues that bring men to FirstLight are a desire to be free of the burdens that they carry, burdens of shame and guilt related to what we call unwanted or problematic sexual behaviors. And that can be anything from porn, compulsive porn use and compulsive masturbation, all the way to paying for sex or anonymous hookups with other people in public places or using dating apps to find sexual partners. Some are married, some are single, but the men coming in are acknowledging that while culture may be telling them one thing about the normalcy of consuming pornographic images of other people, deep down in our hearts, we know that other people are created in the image of God, that we're created in the image of God, and that we are dishonoring that image of God in other people when we use their images for our own gratification. And so deep down, they know there's something not right with them. There's something not right in the behavior. And in some cases, if they're married, their spouse may have discovered and felt a sense of betrayal. And the single men that come in, it's usually just a profound sense that this is not the kind of behavior that they want to be engaging in, and they see the distance that it's creating between them and reality. FirstLight invites men to become better lovers, lovers of God, lovers of neighbor. And a big part of how they've been using their problematic sexual behavior is to numb out pain that they have from their past, shame that they've gathered up over the years. And that's a lot of that shame that they carry is a lot of weight to carry. And to distract ourselves from carrying that kind of weight, men have turned to porn and other problematic behaviors. One of the big issues is that the local church isn't always equipped and doesn't always know how to help these men. And so the problem of shame creates a problem of isolation, and isolation is the perfect environment for shame to grow. And the antidote to shame and isolation is coming into community and being known and loved and accepted in that community. And so at FirstLight, we try and create an environment that is safe enough for men to share things that they've never shared with anyone else before. Because men can share some things in their local church discipleship group or community group or whatever your local church is calling it. They can share some things, but they know there's some things that if they were to share, they would not be accepted, or at least that's what they believe. And so they don't share it, and they continue to carry that burden. They continue to carry that weight. And so there's a couple things that we do to try and create this safe enough environment. One is we have a very high level of confidentiality in the community. We have guys that have been in our community for years, and all of a sudden someone from their church community will join FirstLight, and they'll be meeting again for the first time in a FirstLight check-in meeting and be like, oh, wow, you're in this ministry as well? I had no idea. And so in those cases, we very quickly say, now each of you are married and neither of your wives is ever going to find out that you are involved in FirstLight ministry unless you all agree to that ahead of time. So that's part of creating that safe enough environment. is that high level of confidentiality. And we also have a number of opportunities throughout the week for men to connect with other men to break that isolation. And we have these things called check-in meetings, which are highly confidential and highly structured. So we have 20 of those each week. There's about 7 are in person. The rest are virtual. The check-in meetings are designed to break the isolation, to invite men in where they can unburden themselves to another group of men, and they can leave there knowing that they have been seen and heard by other men, and thereby they are also aware that they're seen and heard by their Lord and Savior. It's also an opportunity to exchange phone numbers with other men in the community, since we as a ministry never provide phone numbers to other men inside the community. We invite men to share their numbers with one another so they know exactly who has their number and who's calling them. And so with those numbers, they're encouraged to reach out to one another. And it could just be a 5-minute phone call sometime during the day. And we encourage guys to reach out before they start feeling that pull of temptation towards the problematic behaviors. So that helps create a sense of awareness around the behavior. And very often, the simple act of reaching out breaks the isolation. And it says, oh, I am a part of a bigger community. And part of my identity in this community is I am someone who used to use others for my own sexual gratification. And I'm not doing that anymore. And we as a community, we don't do that anymore because we are seeking to honor God and to love neighbor. And then for guys that have been in the community for a little while, we invite them into a cohort. A cohort meets once a week with the same 8 men, and they have a cohort leader who's a volunteer with us. He's had some training. Very often it's a man who's been in the community for a few years and has gone through our curriculum and has been equipped to lead a new group of men into sharing their stories with one another. So the check-in meetings is kind of a keeping current. This is what happened today. This is what happened this week. This was what's happened since my last check-in meeting. And the cohort goes deeper. It says we're committed to a longer time together so that we can go deeper with one another. The check-in meeting has any number of men can attend the check-in meeting, but your group, your cohort is set and closed at that number of men with that leader. The cohort group is designed for guys to be able to go deeper with each other because they know they're going to be consistently showing up and having this time together every week. And then once a month, we have a community dinner where we have a chance to enjoy a meal together. Eating together is a highly spiritual thing to do. We worship together, and both of those form community and help reshape identity. And so we take a break from the cohorts on the week when the monthly dinner occurs. Monthly dinner is also an opportunity for guys to break out into different classroom sessions where we will cover a topic that's going to be very practical for them in the breaking of their shameful patterns that they've been stuck in.
I think some people who are listening to this might think, that seems like overkill. Check-in meetings, reaching out, monthly dinners, cohort groups. Like, why can't you just give me a quick fix and send me on my way?
Yeah, I encounter that attitude quite a bit, actually. And I myself once had that attitude. These patterns, they're deeply ingrained, not only in our psyche and our spirit, but also in our biology, in our neurochemistry. And what I learned is that it takes men years and years to develop these habits, and it's not something that's going to change overnight. I'm sure there are cases of men who the Lord has delivered in a moment, but I am much more familiar with the man is being invited into a new way of living, and the Lord has invited him into that journey. And the Lord he's in it with us for the long haul. He's not interested in quick fixes. He's very patient with us. And in the process of healing, in the process of learning new ways of living without relying on old maladaptive, destructive, sinful behaviors, we are not only changing ourselves, but others are seeing how we are changing. And we can give God the credit and the glory for that. And this is how the Lord works, is he works quietly in small increments. And in that we are developing a greater and greater sense of dependency upon him and trust in him. So much of the problematic sexual behaviors is about self-reliance. It's I'm going to take care of my own needs on my own. And in coming out of that, we're starting to say, I don't actually know what's best for me. The Lord does. And he's designed my body, my brain, my whole being, and he's going to be patient with me in the way that he changes and continues to redeem me and each of us.
I'm sure there are men listening to this podcast who are struggling, who want to change, yet still find themselves stuck in the same pattern of isolation and sexual sin. What words of encouragement could you offer someone who is considering joining First Light?
The first thing I would say is you are not alone. So many men stuck in isolation really believe that if they told anyone these things, they would be utterly rejected and condemned. The evidence that I have that Christ is at work in their hearts is that they're saying, I think maybe I need First Light, but I don't know how to do it. It's that kind of admission that tells me Christ is at work, and that if they were to take that brave step to contact me or to contact Bryce and to set up that intake appointment, they would be taking that first step towards finding greater freedom by learning how to depend upon Christ more and more. And for men that have been with us for a while, who have practiced and applied the teachings that we're giving them, that we're modeling for them, that we're teaching them through the curriculum, they are finding increasing freedom over time. They are noticing that the invasive thoughts, those thoughts that are very often sexual in nature that seem to come out of nowhere, that those are decreasing. They're noticing that the urge to masturbate or to self-pleasure in some way is decreasing, and that their appreciation for genuine beauty in God's created world is increasing, that they can take pleasure in a good meal. They can take pleasure in a beautiful sunset. They can take pleasure in the little things that the Lord has given us, that we have taught our hearts to believe aren't enough. And that, so many men have become dependent upon the super stimulus, if you will, of pornography or multiple sexual partners to find that sense of excitement or that sense of pleasure. And that distorts the God-given pleasure that the Lord has on offer for us. I'll say that as an encouragement to invite men into the community, that they can become better lovers, that they can find greater pleasure in the things that God has intended for pleasure. And then on the other hand, I can give this warning that to leave this unaddressed, what happens over time is that the man who is reliant on sexual stimulus for feeling okay is going to feel worse and worse and worse over time. He's going to need more and more stimulus in order to get less and less of a return on that stimulus. And so it really is a hopeless loop to continue to try and find the kind of pleasure that these men are seeking in something that's not designed to give the kind of pleasure that they really want, need, and deserve, that the God of the universe has on offer for them. And so both an invitation to them that the Lord is at work, that he is giving them grace and courage to take that step to come in to First Light and to do the hard work, and a warning that to do nothing is to continue on a downward spiral. And I don't want that for any man listening to this.
David, thank you for those words of encouragement, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Jonathan, this has been an absolute delight. Thanks for having me on.
And now, dear listeners, abide in him so that when he appears, we may be confident and unashamed. This has been Unashamed with Executive Director Sean Maney, Clinical Director Sherry Montague, Men's Director David Noble, and Spouse Care Director Karen Kahlberg. Unashamed is produced by me, Jonathan Shilts. Our theme song is No Indication, used with permission by TrackTribe. Please subscribe, comment, and share to support this podcast. FirstLight Ministries is a nonprofit funded by the generosity of our donors. If you'd like to receive help for sexual compulsion or betrayal, visit www.firstlightstlouis.org.